Hello and welcome to Thought for March the 8th. Our readings are Leviticus chapter 15, Psalm 117 and 118, and 2 Corinthians chapters 10 and 11. And our thought is, unclean, unclean. Those suffering with leprosy in Bible times were expected to cry out, unclean, unclean, Leviticus 13 verse 45. So that people would know not to touch them or her for fear of contagion. Today's reading in Leviticus 15 might seem rather boring, but it has valuable lessons on cleanliness of which the world was ignorant until about 200 years ago. The word leprosy in Leviticus covers a multitude of skin infections, some serious, some not. In the last 2 days, we have seen that it was the priest's responsibility to determine which was serious and see that action was taken. Today, we read about the precautions with sick people and others who had bodily discharges so as to prevent the spread of dangerous infection. Those unclean with a discharge were not to touch anyone without having rinsed their hands in water. The person touched by someone unclean was also regarded as unclean until the evening and was required to wash his clothes and bathe himself. Verse 11. They also had to clean the drinking and other vessels they used. It is only a few generations since our world discovered how infections spread and the great importance of hygiene. Before then, countless deaths and plagues occurred. In the 19th century, a few medical men, suddenly realising that the Bible had such laws given by God 4,000 years earlier, became convinced it really was a divine revelation from God, and that the Bible was a divinely inspired book, and the doctors then started to cure more than they killed. In today's 2 Corinthians chapter 11, we see a spiritual counterpart. Paul laments that some were easily led astray from a sincere and pure devotion to Christ. He then writes, if someone comes and proclaims another Jesus than the one we proclaimed, or if you received a different spirit from the one you received, or if you accept a different gospel from the one you accepted, you put up with it readily enough, we read in verses 3 to 5. Then he makes the point, such men are false apostles, deceitful workmen, disguising themselves as apostles of Christ. Verse 13. The tragedy today is that many accept an unclean gospel, but some, by God's grace, come to realise this and go through a cleansing process. We also read that if really bad behaviour is not cleansed, there is a parallel action to be taken to that of leprosy in dealing with it. See what Paul wrote in 1 Corinthians 5 verses 9 to 13. The faithful church cannot include those who are spiritually unclean. Well, thank you once again for joining us for Thought for the Day, where together we can open up the pages of God's Word, knowing that Word to be a lamp to our feet and a light to our path.